Hello and welcome back to my channel, guys. Kujiro from Gaming in Japan. Happy Thanksgiving to all my friends in the United States. I hope you have a great evening and a great weekend. In today's video, I'd like to talk about the unfolding situation with MK1 and the predictions that the game's life cycle is pretty much done, and how people are reacting right now, and in my opinion, how people in the MK and the NRS community overall should try to react to stuff like that, because these sorts of news and these types of situations is something that a lot of different parts of the fighting game community had to face at one point or another. But I think the situation with MK and the NRS and Warner Bros. Is a little bit different, so I'd like to talk about that. So I'm not here to just retell the news that everybody has heard at this point, but I'm just gonna cover some basics. So a known leaker known as Fate Unknown recently revealed that there will be no Combat Pack 3 for MK1, and the game major development cycle has pretty much concluded. There will be some probably cameos, and of course NRS revealed that they will have a pro tour in next year. But the major content for the game is pretty much done, because according to the person that makes these leaks, Warner Bros. Are not happy with the sales of MK1 Chaos Reigns DLC expansion, and they want to be done with the game and move on to the next game, which probably is going to be Injustice 3. And I think, or at least I hope, some people will be happy about that, although Mortal Kombat is undoubtedly way more popular than Injustice ever will be. I think Injustice is still a pretty cool game, but the main point of the video is not that, guys. The main point of the video is to discuss and try to put together and create a theory, and of course I would like to hear your opinions on how does the MK1 and the NRS community overall deal with playing a game that has finished its life cycle, compared to how people deal with that in other communities. And here is the first major thing that need to be said and understood very well. I do not get why people in the MK community act as if in the all of the FGC, every fighting game that people play is necessarily one of the top 3 ones or one of the major ones. There are plenty of people, of small groups of people, that is important to clarify, that play quote-unquote dead games. I'm a big fan of Soul Calibur, right? Soul Calibur 6, for all intensive purposes, is finished. In Europe, I'm gonna argue there are less than 20 people that play the game on somewhat regular basis. Recently, I had the opportunity to play Kayane. I wasn't prepared for the match, so I ducked. I talked about my encounter with Kayane in my previous video on my channel. Check that out. But guys, I'm gonna list here a couple of games which are played by a very small amount of people. And the important thing here to understand is that no matter how far MK falls, even with the absolutely terrible launch of MK1, I don't think MK ever in the history of video games and the future of video games will ever be played by less than 1,000 people per region, something like that. I'll be highly surprised if the player base falls somewhere below those lines, considering both PC and PS5. Between consoles, there will be always a heck of a lot more people playing MK than any of the other dead games. I'm gonna list some of them Here I already mentioned Soul Calibur 6, Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown, the console version. I hope that the game is gonna do well, but the game is played by very few people. I hope it's gonna get a boost now that there is news about new Virtua Fighter and a new Virtua Fighter 5 version, because the game is very good. It's just not as good as Tekken, but it's very deep and very interesting. Persona 5 Arena Ultimax. Guys, I'm absolutely sure that specifically in Europe, Persona 5 Arena Ultimax is played by something like 10 people. And please consider this, guys. Also Samurai Shodown 7. Please consider that a lot of these games got the rollback overhaul that was supposed to bring back a large group of people, because if the game has rollback, that means that a lot of people are gonna come back. That didn't happen. That didn't happen, unfortunately, for Guilty Gear Xrd F2. I was very happy initially. There was a lot of hype, and there was a temporary increase. I think Guilty Gear Xrd F2 is probably the best example of a somewhat old fighting game that gets a rollback netcode facelift, so to speak, and then it has an actual increase of the fan base. But for games like Samurai Shodown 7, which came out in 2019, that never happened. I think that game is probably the deadest out of all of them. There is, of course, Baseball Central Fiction. Awesome game. Got the rollback upgrade, and it's not played by a whole lot of people. So all these games, if you put them together combined, a year from now, they're not like, if the MK1 player base is reduced to quarter of what it is right now, it's still going to be probably 10 times more than all these games that I mentioned combined are going to have for the foreseeable future. So my question to you is, do MK players actually realize how better their position compared to a lot of other fighting games? And I want to clarify something here, guys. I have pretty much the same criticism to MK1 as everybody else, but I don't hate the game. And the main reason I don't hate the game is because in the current state, I think this game is very fun to play. But I never, and I'm gonna go back here to MK9 days. I never considered MK, even the modern MK games. You can make an argument that Ultimate MK3 is somewhat better than some of the older games like Street Fighter 2. Ultimate MK3 is a very good game, that's all I'm gonna say. MK4 is trash, absolute. But ever since MK9 and the new renaissance of MK has begun since MK9, I'm not gonna consider Deadly Alliance and Deception in this conversation here. But I never considered MK to be equal to Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5, or as it is now Street Fighter 6, or Tekken Tag Tournament 2, Tekken 6, Tekken, what was the name of the free-to-play Tekken? Tekken Revolution, I think it was called, or Tekken 7, or Tekken 8. MK is always behind those two games. I'm not talking about sales, of course. Everybody knows how MK traditionally sells very well, because it has a name recognition, a lot of casuals play the game. So yes, it's always has been a financially successful game, but in terms of the quality of the fighting, the characters, the design, the netcode, and the various options and intricacies how the game is presented to the paying customer, in my opinion, all the modern MK games stand below the other part of the big three, which is Tekken and Street Fighter. So from that point of view, for me, it's not difficult to enjoy MK1. I just don't consider it as good as the other games. I think Street Fighter 6 is, technically speaking, a way better game, but I enjoy playing Ermac and Noob Saibot in MK1 way more than I enjoy playing whatever character that I play in Street Fighter 6. That's my personal opinion, and probably I'm curious to see if there are other people who feel that way. I think the launch of MK1 was in some ways worse than the launch of Street Fighter V in 2016. I think it was launched in March. And the main thing is because I'm gonna show you here a couple of things that in my opinion made the game very boring in the beginning. That is how the meta is played. And let me tell you this, okay? If you consider the history of boring matches in fighting games to watch as a entertainment, from the entertainment value point of view, this is right up there with watching freaking look mirror matches in Street Fighter 6 or Street Fighter 5, or watching Bob mirror matches. There was an instance like that. I'm gonna show probably that in another video, but there was an Evo for Tekken 6 in which in top 8 there were a lot of Bob mirror matches. That was super boring to watch. Dragunov mirror matches in Tekken 8 are not as bad, but watching Raiden Cyrax or Baraka Cyrax or Johnny Cage Cyrax versus Raiden Cyrax in MK1 was absolutely boring, brain dead, devastating experience for a lot of people in the beginning of the game. And I think this had a lot to do with how people really disliked the game in the beginning. Storm Cell, Copter Cyrax into save strings into it was like the chip damage slogfest was just unbearable in my opinion. Very boring to watch, very boring to actually play against also. But other fighting games have things like this as well, but not to the extent that MK1 shot the bed in my opinion. So despite all of that, guys, MK is still going to be played by a lot of people, even if the news turn out to be true, which we don't have any reason to suspect otherwise at this point. It's going to be interesting if it doesn't happen, but it's plausible. Yes, it's highly plausible. Here is another interesting part that will be very educational to observe from the fighting game community standpoint of view. So in the past, you can make the argument for the past couple of games cycling between Injustice 1, MKX, MK11, Injustice 2, and so on. I'm not listing them here in order, but people just move from MK to Injustice and just play the most recent game. That's the largest part of the community, of course. But I think the situation now may have changed, and that might give some hope to the actual good state of affairs in which there is no NRS community. There is people who play MK and people who play Injustice, and they do not try to just flock to the latest game. Of course, there will be a lot of people who are going to play Injustice 3. I hope it comes out. From my understanding, in the initial period, MK1 was supposed to be Injustice 3, but they changed course in the middle of the way, and they used the initial assets for Injustice 3 for MK1, and now they're going to probably use the current MK1 assets for Injustice 3. I hope this game is released, not going to happen next year, but in 2026 maybe. We're going to see Injustice 3 is going to be cool, but the MK community, to some extent, is going to stay active. Is going to stay alive way more than some of the other games that I mentioned, unfortunately. But one of the points that one of the reasons I mentioned the other games earlier was because I think MK players and fans don't really know what it means for their game to actually be that, like some of the other titles like Samurai Shodown 7 or Persona 4 Arena Ultimax or BlazBlue Cross Tag or something like that. Like, these are games that are, you can say, that are actually dead, or are like some people say Discord fighting games. But MK guys, for whoever feels desperate or whoever feels that they're not going to be able to find anyone to play, or people are gonna exit the game in droves, like MK realistically will never, and I'm willing to put money on the line on this statement, MK will never fall to these levels, guys. No matter how much lack of support there is, like how many broken things are found in the future, MK will never fall to the levels of these other games. And it will be interesting to see how people are going to react to the negative MK news, if they're true in the long run. And are people going to finally understand? I'm not trying to be offensive or trying to crap or anybody here, but if you're somebody who believes that MK1 is better than Tekken and Street Fighter, can you please explain why and how exactly? Like, I'm not even gonna go to the arguments of the super terrible netcode that was present in MK1. It's still very bad right now, but it's not as bad as it was in the beginning. I think MK1 is in a very good state, but it's Street Fighter 5 kinda sorta pseudo revival story arc probably is not gonna happen. Street Fighter 5 at the end was a very good game at the end of its life cycle, but no. Like, MK1 is not gonna have the same fate, unfortunately. Like I said again, I think the game is pretty fun to play, but not on a super serious, high level competitive environment. I mean, I rarely travel for fighting games. I mainly do that for job engagements and stuff like that. But if I have to try, I'll never actually travel for Mortal Kombat. I might travel for another game and play MK on the site if it's present at an event, but like, going super hard for MK is not feasible unless you are kind of like a content creator, somebody like that piece of manure through Underdog Gaming who is a part of these toxic positive content creators that MK Tom Brady talked about recently. But yeah, guys, do not worry that much about the future of MK. There will be more fighting games from NRS Studios. And please, whenever you say that MK1 is dead, please consider the actual dead fighting games that exist out there and will probably continue to exist in the future, because people nowadays, guys, they move away between fighting games way more than they used to. In the past there was way more in the 2000s and the 2010s. There was way more clear and ideological separation, I would say, between 2D fighting game players and 3D fighting game players. Like, people didn't jump in between games. Like, you were not going to see in the past Justin Wong playing Tekken or Justin Wong playing Baraka in Mortal Kombat. And like, I'm showing you again this footage right now where you can see Johnny Cage Cyrax versus Raiden Cyrax, and like, whatever in the future happens with MK1, we're not going to be at least in that terrible situation. Starex is single-handedly as a cameo did a lot of damage to the game in my opinion, but we're in a much better state now, guys. And shoutouts if you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, if you're a genuine fan of Mortal Kombat who just likes the character, likes the music, likes the stages and the design. I'm a fan of Mortal Kombat like that. I just don't think that the fighting game itself is on par with the other fighting games, but that's okay. It is okay to like multiple fighting games. It is okay to rank fighting games as better or worse compared to one another, and still not have the meaning that one of the fighting games that is lower in the rank is trash or anything like that. And if you are a MK fan who really wanted to like MK and the MK to be successful from the position of compared to other fighting games, like why is that? I don't understand. Can you realistically compare MK to Tekken, for example, or to Soul Calibur, Virtua Fighter, Dead or Alive? Like, these games have traditional fan bases. For example, MK is not played in Japan or in South Korea for not say for work reasons, of course, but it's gonna be super cool to see a MK community in Japan. I sometimes up on my Japanese YouTube channel sometimes upload MK content there without commentary, unfortunately, because I don't have time. But shoutouts to MK, guys. Shoutouts to MK1. Shoutouts to all the people who are going to stick with the game and not feel guilty about it. Yes, the game had a lot of problems. I 100% agree and support all the correct criticism. But saying that MK is gonna be that is absolutely insane. And if you're somebody who believes that in the grand scheme of the fighting game community, you do not understand what other fighting games exist out there and what kind of situations people who play other fighting games have to deal on daily basis. Like, you have to log in a certain time, you have to write to somebody on Discord, they may answer you 2 or 3 days later to play a first to 10 session or something like that. But like, you're never gonna be in that situation with MK. I'm gonna say that even in MK11 right now, if I log into MK11, there will be people playing the game, guys. Let's remember how Ninja Kill came into the scene. Like, he was playing the older version of the current version of MK, which was MKX, and he was the best Liu Kang player. Then he eventually came to MK11, played with Sonic. Now he also plays Tekken. He's an amazing martial law player in Tekken. He's one. I'll be highly surprised if Ninja Killer is not top 3 martial law players in the United States, like right now. And he's one of the proofs that people can play multiple games, can enjoy multiple games, and can see different games in a different category compared to others based on the quality of the games, and can still play in I don't know what his point of view is, but from our point of view, people who compare games, right, and try to rank things, if he plays Tekken and MK1, with MK1 he's objectively playing the worst game of the two, but he's still playing it. So you can do the same. I will continue playing MK1 here and there, and I have no problems with that. And I do not think that the game will be that like in the same way that a lot of other games are, fighting games are that. In the same way as, let's say, Guilty Gear XR Slash or something like that. But although it's played in 5K, but like still it's not played as much as Strife, and the other Guilty Gear games are better than Strife in my opinion. Strife is also become way better nowadays, but anyway, I'm rambling too much here. Yeah, let me know what you think about the current state of MK1. How, if you think that the game has improved in the past couple of months, and what do you think is going to happen in the future of MK1? And the most important question I have for you is, if MK1 is going to be dead, can you how can it be compared to Samurai Shodown 7, Soul Calibur 6, BlazBlue Central Fiction, and Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, and DNF Duel, for example? I would love to hear your opinion, guys. I'm gonna branch of something very big next week. I'm gonna talk about that in the future. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you around, guys. Peace.